Paradigm of love and universal consciousness with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and our producer is Debra DeFranco, and you're listening to Revolution Radio Studio B. Our guest today is Kenneth Hopkins. He's been with us a couple times. He's going to talk about his abduction experiences that he's had as far back as he can remember. At first, he thought they were just dreams, and then he discovered they were abductions. First came the experiences with the Greys, then later a species that he described as the Nordics, but we're going to learn who and what they really were. So he's had many experiences, and we're going to come back and revisit everything he's been going on in his life. He has a book. Let's see, what's your book's name? I'll have him tell you about the book. I don't have it. Oh, here it is. It's called Earth Transformations, a book written for contactees about the beginning of awareness and the journey ahead. So I'm going to bring him on, but Dr. Lessin, you have anything to say before we bring on Kenneth Hopkins?
I'm all ears, and I'm interested in the relationship of the celestials and the departed.
So welcome back to the show, Kenneth. Thanks for coming back. Are you on mute?
I think I figured it out.
Good. That always happens. It's bad when I do it. Better you than me, though. So, what's been going on in your life? Are you still having experiences, abductions, encounters, however you describe them?
Things have somewhat slowed down since a group of us were infected with COVID-19 by, I mentioned Nordics, but I got corrected with saying with Pleiadians, which I have a hell of a time spelling. And so they said Nordics wasn't the correct name of who they were. It was a group, a subgroup. So
they told you that they were Pleiadians.
Yeah, that when we had asked for information, my friend and I have had experiences with the same and been in the same abductions. And we've known each other for 20 years. And so sometimes she gets communications, sometimes I get communications. And so she was asking a group of questions of the Pleiadians that we've been involved with.
How does the communication come? Is it telepathic? Is it?
It's telepathic, and I've been in it. It's funny because I was told about it. I didn't believe it at first, but there's a connection with the ETs and the abductees that is a lot easier than many may believe, and like you would a prayer, that's kind of how we speak. Sometimes we'll throw a question out, wait, and an answer will come. I was told by somebody I had some medical issues, and I was told to communicate this way for some medical assistance or medical procedures. And I believe the procedures were done by the Greys. But they corrected a back problem I had for quite a few years, for almost a decade.
Wow.
They also removed 2 kidney stones.
Oh, that's good enough.
Been causing me a lot of problems.
How do you know they did it?
Well, the kidney stones disappeared after. The surgery was very painful. So I was somewhat bedridden in pain for about a day, for most of a day. And that was how I knew they had done the procedure. Then the regressions answered using hypnosis. We were able to find out what they did and so forth. But surgery isn't uncommon with abductees.
So how do they do surgery? Do they do like we do? You know, they cut, or do they have different ways of doing surgery?
I have very little consciousness of the surgical procedures. I know the pain afterwards. The Greys are definitely very different in their procedures. They can open somebody up and reclose them in a matter of minutes. The Greys medicine is way beyond what we have available.
Well, that's shocking to hear that you were in so much pain, because most times I hear people have horrendous things, like they take out their eyeballs or open up their veins, but they come back and they don't have any reports of pain. Do you remember anybody come back?
Anu was really in pain when Alalu bit off his manhood.
Right, that's the ancient aliens, but I'm talking about the modern day ones that are doing, like the Greys and...
Remember Elizabeth Anglin's colleague who died because he wiggled during an operation?
We've heard of botched operations, and then they returned the little boy.
Don't wiggle.
Don't wiggle when aliens have you under the knife, so to speak. Don't wiggle.
Yeah, I almost fell off of an operating table once.
Oh, wow.
I was resisting them as they were doing something to my back. They left about 2 feet of what looked like lacerations or whip marks. I don't know what they were doing, but it was very painful. And I was trying to get off the table, and I almost fell to the floor. And then I became fearful of falling, so I just stayed still.
Wow.
But it didn't seem like they had a good hand on me.
Well, I'm aware sometimes of healing, but most times it's like more like Reiki or something, that more energy healing. Like I'll go to bed and I'll say, "Oh, I'm in a lot of pain. Can you do something about it?" And it's almost like a prayer. And it may not happen the first night, but usually in a couple days I go, "Oh, they took care of that. I don't have that pain." So it's a nice system. I think it's better than the American Medical Association. ETs come help.
Yeah. They did a procedure with instruments taking from the carotid and putting blood back in. They were circulating it through a filtration system, it looked like. It was a fairly elaborate. So I really don't understand what I've seen and of what little I've seen of their medicine. The Greys, I saw them take a woman apart, and then eventually they put her back together, but they presented her to me apart, and that was quite traumatic. And that
They presented you and her. They presented her.
How small were the parts?
What kind of parts did they give you? Her head or her leg? Or
no, they took her apart so that I can see an electrode attached to the center of her brain, to the cortex.
Oh.
It was about 2 inches, black, had 2 stripes. MK Ultra projects under the Monarch and the Artichoke projects. This came under. They were putting these implants in children. And so when the Greys took us for that 16-hour missing period, they were examining and discovered that piece in her head.
I've never heard of the Artichoke program. Can you tell us about that?
I've interviewed people that described the operations that were done to them as children. And in my book, I have a picture, a CIA release picture of a child with wires coming out of the top of her head. I wasn't able to get I'm assuming that this device had some kind of honing capability, because that's what I think the military was using it for. This was a Department of Defense operation with an MK Ultra they used as like an agent. When they were aware of the abductions, and then they put a girl in the situation to be abducted. It was very strange, but it's very complicated. I wrote about it in UFO Girl, which was published in that first book I published. The girl later was shot.
Just Googled artichoke program and it comes up. I just love the internet. You want to know anything?
No, but it sounds like an assassin program. They're teaching him how to skillfully strangle people with an artichoke.
No, it's a joke.
I don't know where artichoke came from.
No, he's just telling a corny Sasha joke. So ignore him.
Choke.
Artichoke. No. Okay, so I guess it's Project Bluebird Artichoke. Officially rose on August 20th, 1951, and was operated by CIA. Oh my goodness! Yeah. I'm putting it in the in your page here if anybody wants to look it up. I do have an extensive web page on aquarianradio.com on this show, Kenneth.
Yeah, it's a major MK Ultra project. It was abandoned eventually with the implant.
Wow. So the primary goal of Project Artichoke was to determine whether a person could involuntarily be made to perform an act of attempted assassination.
I can tell. That's the way they think. It's an artichoke.
The art of choking. Okay, you're right. I thought you were telling a joke.
No, I understood, Jan. How the government thinks.
Art of choking. Okay. Lovely government we have. Oh, let's elect more people from our government.
Yeah, they were very successful, by the way. So they used them for couriers. They used them for assassins. They activate them. They deactivate them. They were quite successful with this program.
Okay, so this person was part of this. There were several programs, and they were just showing you the wires to her brain.
Well, they took her head apart. They put the skull by her hip. They put the brain by the left side of her head, the left hemisphere of the brain, and then they showed me the electrode in its position in the brain.
Beings doing this type of operation, or was it gray aliens?
They brought me into the room after she was doing a lot of screaming previous to the procedures. And then she was quiet and, of course, laying on the table, opened up. And then they asked telepathically if I knew what this was that was in her head.
So who was the they? Were they the Greys or
the Greys?
So the Greys were doing the surgery.
Yeah.
So they know how to take somebody's head off, screw around with them, and reassemble the whole body. Wow.
Well, I thought she was dead, and that was so traumatic about that initial experience.
Uh-huh.
I assumed they had killed her. And then she came back, and 16 hours missing time it took us years to be able to break into that memory.
So you worked with this woman after she came back, reassembled.
She came back. We were taken from a car while it was moving, is what I remember. We were returned to the car 16 hours later when it was moving. That's what my memory around the whole missing time situation is that. And there was a lot of them where we were taken from cars.
This is a friend of yours, not just some strange woman.
She was introduced to me when I was working for Department of Defense. I didn't understand the top secret status. I was cleared I didn't really understand what was going on in this whole situation until we got into hypnosis in the early 2000s.
What were you doing for the Department of Defense?
I was working at Northeastern University, and it was a cooperative education job. And so they interviewed me. I was accepted. I assumed I was a driver, and I worked the reception desk. I didn't realize there was a top secret classification process. And then I also came across in the diaries I had written where they had me sign for permission for a top secret security clearance. But at that time, I had no understanding of that whole process.
Yeah, I've been in worked for the military, and they tend to screw around with you. You're not really doing what you think you're doing.
No, we're supposed to be picking a check up.
Right. And then you find out later, oh, wait, I wasn't doing that. I'm just starting to recover more memories, and I really need to take some time, maybe do a regression or something. I was on Johnson Atoll, but you ever have it when you're talking to somebody and then all of a sudden you go, oh, that's not, it like comes back in the middle of the sentence like, oh, there was a lot more to that that I've been telling myself all these years. So, wow. So they did that to Preston Nichols, and Peter Moon wrote about it, but all the guys at Montauk, they give you your official job, and then when you do some regression, or even sometimes you're just talking about, you get the spontaneous memory, and you go, oh, that's what we were really doing, right? So interesting. So let's go back in time. We start in the middle of your story. A lot of people don't know who you are.
And how did you and your partner recognize each other as being in the program together?
I recognize where I was being teleported to at night. We ended up being teleported to some of the same places. She looked familiar for a lot of abductions, but I couldn't place her. And then I placed her in a meditation group that I had been a member of. Eventually, I was able to make the correlation, and then we discussed the same memories we had being on the ships, being in the different locations. And there were some that she didn't have, and there were some that I didn't have, that we had been together. And we became very good friends, and both of us have had issues with the surveillance. Her just recently with being forced off the road by a car. We don't really know what they're up to or what's going on. But both of us have had...
Trying to hurt you or just...
Scare you?
Do you think they were trying to kill you or hurt you? Or
No, they forced her... They've been following her, and there's been a lot of issues with the tailing of my girlfriends. And they started initially tailing her years ago, and just recently it started back up. And on her way going home, a car was waiting for her and then cut her off on the road, so she had to go off the road. Then he signaled her to get out of her car. She didn't. She backed up, reversed, went off around the vehicle where she could and got away from him. He then took off the opposite direction. She's been followed up to several cars at the same time. We really don't know who these people are. I've been kind of dealing with them most of my life with house break-ins, car break-ins. I was under heavy surveillance for many years, about 4 years ago.
Do you ever try to defend yourself or your girlfriend with a weapon?
They haven't threatened me physically. They've threatened her physically. They're trying to discourage her from getting together with me. I thought initially 35 years ago when I was in the military, I went into the military to thinking I can get away from these people.
Uh-huh.
But it's basically been lifelong. They've not made any efforts to kill me. They seem to be obsessive about where I go. They seem to be obsessive about the girls I see. But I haven't seen a point of needing to be armed.
So are you part of the breeding program?
I was, yeah, with the Greys, I was a participant, but it was mostly the women with me that were the ones that were utilized for the Greys hybrid projects. The other project started in 2010 with the Palladians, and they warned me of the surgery. They were nice enough to tell me they're going to do surgery on me. But I was in so much pain for several days, I wasn't able to get up, and eventually the pain went away. But they had done some kind of work on the prostate system. They said new cells, and then I was utilized for some of their sexual programs or whatever you call them. Recently, they communicated that they were breeding amongst their own, and they weren't a hybrid project.
So what made them want you to know that? Why was that important?
In our communications, I was referring to them as Nordics. They didn't like that at all. They said Nordics was a slang expression for a small group of them, or they didn't like the expression Nordic, and they said, "We are Palladians, you are Palladians." And I'm repeating what they had spoken through with my partner in this.
Right.
And so I'm trying to figure out, how are we Palladians? You know, I had the blood work done with the history DNA. I was related to my father, and then it became, so then my assumption is we're all Palladian. So, but they claimed they had come to this planet thousands of years ago and set up on this planet, and that we were connected with those initial ones. They gave the location of their star system, which my friend asked the questions, and then she said, "I will destroy the answers after you tell them to me." So she destroyed the paper, but I have a rough idea, and so I got to get looking up more on the Palladians, seeing if the galaxy they mentioned was the one they told her. They said that they also mentioned that COVID-19 was for the stop of industry and the production of gases. And they had infected us.
I guess our skies are clearing up, and we're not back, nor will we be going back very soon to the levels. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the charts of all the flights.
Oh God, yeah.
It was just they were going everywhere, and the whole sky, like thousands and thousands of flights day after day after day with all that. And I think that if they hadn't stopped it, we would be gone as a species and the whole planet destroyed. Did they say anything like that to you? Like we were just on a collision course with disaster had we not stopped flights and everything?
I think we still are, but I haven't figured it out.
But I think it would have been like this year or something. Because the year before, it was so bad. My house, I had centipedes. It was so hot, and the centipedes were coming into my house. And they were, it was horrible. It was like a nightmare. You know, when you get the what do you call those? The lotuses? Yeah, the locusts. I couldn't. It's like a locust invasion, but I had an invasion of centipedes in my house. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning. What happened? What was your earliest recollection?
They were pretty frightening. Was the paralysis and the visitors.
How old were you?
3, 2, 3. I was in a crib. It made me afraid of sleep because it seemed to happen around sleep.
What was frightening about them?
There was a sensation and that came with them that was horrifying. I couldn't understand. And it was interesting. My brother had hallucinations at night, and we think the hallucinations later on, I never discussed it with my brother, that he was having at night, there was no explanation for them. We think they were screen memories to what was happening to me.
Right. Do you think he was being taken as well? They usually take several members of the same family.
Yeah, well, I don't know about him. He didn't ever seem to become aware of. My sister was aware, and she and I were abducted one night. And I was conscious. She brought me to her room to look at a UFO outside her window, and they took me then. They had taken her before that. That was in 75, 74. And she was showing me the ship. I saw the ship out on the marsh. And then with hypnosis, for years I didn't know that was an abduction. But hypnosis uncovered that that was an abduction.
So what year were you born?
1953.
Oh, okay. I was born in 54. So you started having experiences in 55, 56.
Yeah, I'd say so. My son had a missing time experience with an ambulance that was lost for 2 hours. So when they were transferring him from one hospital to another as a preemie, the ambulance lost 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
There was an alert, and they notified us that they weren't accounted for. And he was the only one being transported, but everything seemed to go through well with the transport. So no further questions were asked of.
So what do you think the ETs did to you?
They're very involved with him. The Greys and another group. He calls them Wolvins.
Oh, I've heard of them. Yeah. So it'd be a hybrid of. So even though the Pleiadians say they're not hybrids, they're still. And I interview thousands of experiencers, and there are still some hybrid programs going. They can use more than one species.
The Atlans who fled Lyra in the first place settled in the Pleiades before the Federation brought them into the galactic war for Earth and Mars.
Right. So there's a history of they started to hybridize. Well, that's part of what they do. The Greys love to play with DNA and mix and match, and it's almost like they're playing. Let's see what we get if we put a little bit of this in there and a little bit of that. It's like making a phosphorescent cat, glow green. They like to do stuff like that. So do you think that they may have done something to that was your son, right?
Yeah. He hasn't been in the hybrid projects, but I got to be careful. He doesn't really want me talking about his experiences.
Okay, we'll honor your son.
His request, yeah.
Great.
He and I have had a lot of similar. But he's with a different group than I am.
Oh, so he's not with the Pleiadians?
No.
You know what group he's with?
I'm getting that what you and your son have in common is a high libido. Is that what you're alluding to?
A what?
That you have big sex drive, high libido, it's called it.
With the sex, I don't think so. They use drugs on us in the Palladian project. They sometimes use gas.
Oh.
Hypnosis, there's a little more involved than just having sex with these different women. Some of it was spiritual, but there was and with the Palladians, I didn't know what was going on from one night to the next night. I had a conscious teleportation with a visitor that materialized in my room, and she gassed me. I was conscious in that abduction, and then I attacked her, and I had no memory after she gassed me.
Wow.
So
But
what was that about, attacking her? What do you mean by that?
sexually attacking her, ripping her clothes off. That was but she sprayed a gas or a mist in my face that affected consciousness. Well, it affected memory anyways, but it got a behavior that she wanted. And I had heard references to this from another woman on this gas, that in negotiations, this other woman said, who I don't want to mention her name, she said they were trying to prevent the usage of this gas.
So the gas made you attack her, or was that?
It seemed to do something with the sexual aggression. I don't know what areas of the brain it affected, but it made you sexually aggressive, and I hated it. It got them. They wanted the sperm. It got them their sperm, so they used it. Some of the females used it. We referred to them as breeders.
Wow.
But the Pleiadians said that they were Pleiadians. Now they were women of different ethnics or colors. There was no all white, blonde hair. There was all different races.
But they were Pleiadians, or they were different species?
They said they were mating. They were mating amongst themselves, which meant they must have been Pleiadians. But I was confused. They're considering the people that are the ancestors of those that they brought to Earth to be Pleiadian.
Yeah.
And so that was a correlation I never, had before. So that they said they're breeding amongst their own. They're breeding Pleiadian with Pleiadian.
Do they influence your current romantic life and direct you still?
Only with the Celestials. They play no role in my dating life.
So they allow you to have relationships
On Earth or with the Celestials?
You have a life where you have a partner or partners in your human Earth life, right?
Okay. My wife just died or about a year and a half ago.
That's what I sensed. Is she still with you? Can you still communicate with her?
I have dreams. She's come through in dreams. She seems to be in a different plane than I'm used to communicating on. But she's come through in several dreams on
Have
things.
they ever shown her to you in any of your experiences with them? We had a friend, Gloria Hawker, and she was shown, her husband died, and then she was on board the ship, and he was up there. But she didn't.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
And where somebody that's supposed to be dead is in your abduction.
Right, and there's several things. What Gloria said, they told her that they had substituted a body of somebody that was a double of his that wasn't very functional and was expiring anyhow, and they took the real husband on board, and she didn't believe it, but he had certain pattern, just like Bill Clinton did, so he proved it.
I had a birthmark. Let's just call it that. He had a birthmark. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I've heard of an account where they gave a woman a new body identical to her old body because of her heart. That's anything is possible. So
Right.
everything I think isn't possible, or it isn't possible, the ETs have certainly shown me is possible. So
Well, you're valuable to them. So they're, some of us are really valuable to them and they keep us alive no matter what. Some
yeah,
people want
yeah,
to die and it's like, nope, you can't die. Sorry.
And for some people, it's your future self, or that's what Russell experienced, his future self,
Oh, yeah, Russell Brinninger.
and a manifestation of your higher self will often be there.
huh. Now, what about the alternate personalities? Have you?
Lots. It's some people have been split in such a way that they can't realize that they have these parts. They're really split, and it was on purpose and traumatic for specific things. Others are able to develop an aware ego and center themselves and experience more these different alters and actually use them and coordinate them in an intelligent fashion.
Huh. Yeah, under the hypnosis in the abductions, we came across some 15 alternates that were having experiences with different different groups of celestials. So I didn't have consciousness of those experiences the alternates were experiencing.
So those are sources of wisdom for you, and as you open up to these, each of them has some real unique things to teach you. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes an alter will develop when you have extreme trauma.
Yeah.
And then step in when it comes into that type of situation again.
And many abductees talk of extreme trauma as children.
Yeah.
And I often wonder if that wasn't a game to bring about dissociation.
It was. They did it on purpose in Montauk. Mengele came over from Germany and taught the American CIA guys to do the same thing to kids here. Hundreds of thousands of kids killed in this program.
It was a horrible program. And the alternates can have different abilities. The Palladians were aware of an alternate with me falling in love with one of their women, and they had a meeting because the couple wanted to get married, to get together. So they brought me into a room, brought the alternate in and the woman that he was in love with into the room, then switched me back to me and asked me if I wished to leave and be with the celestial, because the alternates, that was a choice the alternate was trying to make. And the Pleiadians explained to me that the alternate are just as important as you are.
Yes.
They are equal to you. So I wrote the prose down that they rehearsed in my head as I woke up in the morning one day. It was quite a little prose, but basically about the importance of the alter's decisions.
Wow. What Jung says is you can when you have a bunch of them, you can still have your favorites, but you've got to respect all of them.
Yeah, I have one that has kind of been out of sync, that has gotten me in a lot of trouble with the government or military. And I don't know what is going on, and I'm not supposed to know what's going on. So I stay as dumb as possible on that one.
Well, the process creates some parts of you. They're kind of like super geniuses that can remember long, huge bits of information and deliver things. So that's one of the reasons they do it. but like in this project, we talked about what was that called? The funny name project.
Spaghetti.
Not spaghetti.
The artichoke.
The artichoke program. Whoops. Yeah.
That's going to be in my head for all.
These, super soldiers and Manchurian candidates, and because they want these people to. So are you a super soldier of some kind?
I was brought into the MK Ultra project as a child with learning disabilities at Boston Children's Hospital, where they're doing, and I was being worked on by a Dr. Vincent Perlow, who's of course dead now, but they were injecting me, or I had an IV in my arm and I was holding a rubber ball and I was supposed to do things to this child. I haven't done much on the MK Ultra memories because I really don't see them having a great significance. I had no consciousness. I wasn't aware of what I was doing in these programs. So that's an area I've left alone with hypnosis. Most of my research and work with hypnosis has been with abductees. But I did come across.
It also may be to protect you from knowing things that'll get you killed.
What? Oh.
It might also be something that's protecting you from blabbing something that'll get you killed.
Yeah. For some reason, have you. Oh, break.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, a writer that I read a lot from, whose name I can't quite get right now, talked about what he called near-death experiences.
Yes.
These weren't coma. These were where you should be colliding with a truck and the truck is gone. You should have died when that plane crashed, but you didn't. Or I've had a number of situations I should have died in. Motorcycle with a 18-wheeler, car with an 18-wheeler. But magically everything disappeared and I was somewhere else.
You got guardians, man.
So
These be very valuable because they slip you out of time, sink in space, and they move you so you're not.
Okay, so that's what they did. So that's what was happening. I was being taken out of time and moved in space.
If an 18-wheeler disappears before you collide.
Well, actually, I disappeared and was somewhere else, I think.
Well, yeah. So they're blinking you in and out.
Yeah.
And moving you. I've seen some videos. There's actually some. We have all these street cams, and there's some videos that have caught near collisions, and all of a sudden, the two parties are on the other side of the
right.
the road from each other. They were on a direct course of colliding. Somebody was going to get killed. And then they're on the other side of the road, and they go, "What happened? I should be dead."
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They did. That was the same principle that the committee did when it looked like Nibiru was going to have a perigee that would be disastrous for Earth. They moved Earth out of time and space, and then back in again. So they say.
Huh? Yeah. It definitely seemed. Definitely there's got a time and distance and space distortion occurring in those instances. So a shift of time.
Yeah.
A break of the...
So who do you think you are to them? That you're important?
I don't understand that because I don't, other than what Kenneth is doing, I'm getting, I'm not really seeing myself in a leadership role. I'm not seeing myself in a very valuable role with them at all.
They like motorcycle guys.
Yeah,
we have the guy took him right off
Russell,
his motor. Russell Kellett, they took him right off his motorcycle at a stop, and they took him, and then he was in the middle of a battle, and his commander was some kind of alien, and they were fighting another type of aliens, and meanwhile they start beeping like, "Go, the light has changed."
The light changed.
Like, what? The light changed?
I was having, while you're on the lights and the motorcycle, I was having problem with lights on the motorcycle.
Uh-huh.
They wouldn't change.
Right.
And so what was happening is traffic was running them. And this only happened when I was on a motorcycle. I come up to an intersection waiting for it to give me permission, and it wouldn't change. Traffic is lining all the way back, and then cars are going around me through the intersection.
Uh-huh.
And it was getting scary. I had no explanation for what was going on.
That's the same thing that happened to Russell. Wow.
I'm glad somebody else had the experience. Certain lights were really bad.
Yeah, so, I don't know how they do it. I think his was like in a country road, so he didn't bother anybody for quite a while until somebody came up and they were like, why is this guy stopped there forever? But yeah, in the middle of traffic, they would start going around you and honking, so.
Yeah,
anyway, you're obviously...
It was getting scary.
But you didn't want to break the law.
No, I waited. I just waited.
So, wow. So you've started to interview experiencers. What are you finding with all your interviews?
I'm finding a lot of different things. I'm finding the Greys and another group and the person. I find the Greys involved with a lot of the other ET groups so they both are abducting the same people in some cases.
So the Greys are working alongside other ET species. Is that what you're saying?
No, well, one takes them one time, the other takes them another time.
Oh, I see.
They're lab rats.
Yeah. The Greys, when they, only the Greys would take you from the car and give you missing time. And then the Pleiadians at night. But I've talked to people that are having contacts with the Lyrans. What it comes down to is I need a lot more interviews. And so I got to get that cycle started on interviewing because there's different groups with their abductees coming back with different messages. I want to look for uniformity. I want to look for collaboration among abductees of the same groups. So to complete what I'm trying to do, I have to do a lot of interviews. So I'm slowly setting up. Unfortunately, my web page became too frustrating and I abandoned it. So I got to get back to it. Wow.
Well, I'd love to help you in the project because I'm doing the same thing.
It's a stupid program.
It's huge. And so you're saying in one night they'll come in, one species take you and bring you back, and then another species who come and take you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I have a picture showing me returning and then being taken in 2 minutes.
So why don't they just hand you off in space? You have to bring all the way back to your bedroom and then
I don't think the groups are coordinating. I don't think they have any kind of coordination. I don't think they're...
You've got to have a transponder so both groups know where you are. Maybe all three groups know where you are.
You're probably marked. You've got to...
Well, they've done nasal implants. The Greys have.
Yeah, mine act up all the time. It's up my right nostril, like way up in the skull. I've seen a photo, or what do you call it, an X-ray of it. My one doctor, she said, "What is this?" I knew what it was, but I wasn't telling her because she was a straight doctor.
She wasn't going to believe you anyways.
No, they're supposed to report things like that to some medical authority and not tell the patient. They have this whole protocol. Remember what happened to?
God.
Yeah. So they got one. She said
all the things I've had removed surgically, and they've never really given me a good explanation for them.
Right.
I once had a psychic sit there, and I never met this psychic before. I'm going to her house for some kind of gathering. She isolates me, and she starts to tell me what all my implants, where they are and what they're for. It was fascinating. I just sat there. I didn't ask her to do a reading on me. I wasn't there for a session. She just sat there and said, "You have implants, and one behind your right ear, one up your right." She went down the line. She said, some of them were to protect me because I was dating, like against STDs. Some of them were to track me. Some were for communication. Some were to protect me from all the diseases that are going around. So I don't know if they had one that was protecting me from all, or one that, they had to do a new one for each time I got one. So, I can't be afraid of vaccines. I've got implants. They've been doing that all my life. And,
they removed them and they put them back.
Well, maybe they put in a more modern version because their technology's changed as well.
Yeah.
They're not as fast as. See, they like humans because we're real inventive and creative, and so we can look at something and go, I can improve that design. So they have our engineers come in and they'll give them a model like the original Roswell craft, and then they'll have some of our engineers come and they'll spiff it up and make it do different things. There's a lot of people in those programs, and they're off planet for the most part, but we're getting reports about that, the secret space program.
Yeah.
How they like our mechanics and engineers.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, what do you know about the secret space program?
Well, I've interviewed a whole bunch of people, and I keep finding people. The other day, I was just interviewing a contactee, and next thing we know, we're talking about the secret space program. So you just to forewarn you, you might be talking about ETs, and then suddenly you got somebody, they're on the Mars base, and some of them fly the craft. They're like cyborgs. They have alters, and the alter will be, some of them have like slow transports going between planets. Some of them are teleporting. There's all kinds of technology. I don't know the rhyme or reason of it. You would think you would just teleport things all over the place, but sometimes they have. It's kind of like, remember the original movie Alien? They have the slow craft. It's just kind of out there in space, and it's kind of rustic, like an old boat, and the crew's on there. And
Randy was an Iapetus, a moon of Jupiter.
Yeah, Randy. Have you ever interviewed Randy Kramer? He's very interesting.
What was the name of his story?
Randy Kramer. He was the one that his superior told him he was supposed to come out and tell everybody about. He was 17 years on the Mars base. So he says that he's being directed to do this type of disclosure to, I guess, prepare us for the next thing that's coming. We're coming up on the break in about 3 minutes here. So I just let's we're going all over the place, but it's very good. Do you have something to say, honey? You look like you have a question mark on your.
I'm just fascinated. This is a great discussion. Yeah.
Right.
I just can't get over. As soon as I saw that word artichoke, I knew that it was there. The way the government thinks they're doing a joke on everybody to train assassins, and that's the way they think.
Yeah. So, Debra, when we come back, do you have any questions you want to ask?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, if you have any, just let us know. We always value your input. Debra's a former host, and she's a very good interviewer. She's a very good co-host. Okay. So when we come back in about 2 minutes. Well, we're going to go and break in about 2 minutes. What do you want to focus on when we get back, Kenneth?
Well, in the in the Palladian hybrid program, there was time travel involvement.
Well, let's talk about that. Yes.
But I don't know where the hell. I couldn't figure out the what was going on with the time, why they were playing with time and getting a person pregnant, both in the past and in the future.
Well, if they interject a certain soul at a certain time, I'm sure they can create different outcomes.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to split the timeline, and because some of them apparently are from the future, and they're trying to, like you said, keep us from destroying the world. And
yeah, that it was definitely the one in the future was definitely apocalyptic. She was living in a house that had a lot of the roof gone, and holes in the floor and leaves blowing around. And I visited that area 4 times to be with that she was a young blonde woman. And then, but in the time experiences, there was a loss of physical dexterity.
for you?
For me.
Oh, wow.
So when they're trying to have me drive,
We're going to pause right there. We're going to find out where they have you drive. We'll be back. Be back in a few minutes, 4 minutes. Please mute.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning, warning.
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You
can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
And welcome back to the Sacred Matrix, and I am your host, Janet Care Lessin. I'm here with Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin and our producer, Debra DeFranco. And this is Revolution Radio, Studio B, and our guest is Kenneth Hopkins. Okay, before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to revolution.radio, and up at the top left, there's a tab. You can make your one-time donation, or go to the Patreon button up the top and make your recurring donation. And we do thank you very much for making your donation, because they help us stay on the air. Okay, anything you want to say?
No, we were in the middle of an adventure.
What was the word we were saying? I forgot the word. Anyway, you were in mid-sentence, Kenneth. Welcome back. Finish your sentence.
Yeah, we were talking about going in the past to impregnate a young woman in 1960. Of course, would have been nice. They were expecting me when I arrived, or teleported, and I arrived in an old, abandoned, it looked like empty cafe. There was this man, older man with gray hair, and this young woman about 16 or 17 sitting. And he had some discussion with her. I thought it was odd to see such an old man and a young woman together. She started to undress. When she came near me, I discouraged her from undressing. And then he wanted me to drive a car and take her out somewhere. So he had me get in a 1959 convertible, and I couldn't drive it. I couldn't handle the steering. I couldn't get any dexterity, and it kept hitting the curve. So then he wanted me to return, the young woman back to her mother. There had been some discussion. I don't know what discussions had been for the young girl to go with him and then meet me. And then when I returned, he had me take her back to her home. I took her to her home and sat on her porch while she went and talked to her mother about something. In these time experiences, I cough up this stuff. I don't know what it is. It feels like the lining of my mouth has dried up and I'm spitting what feels like snake skin up.
Wow.
And it seems to occur with the time travel experiences. And so once I'm done coughing it up, then it's gone for a while. And then I'll get bits and pieces that I'll cough up as I'm going through. So eventually the girl came out. I had declined from getting sexually involved with her. I didn't think it was appropriate. And I was instructed to be particularly kind to her when I brought her back to her house. So that was that experience.
Was to impregnate her? Was she aware of the mission?
She seemed to be. There was discussion with her and the man. she seemed to understand the importance of getting pregnant.
But you didn't follow through. So
no,
what happened?
I wasn't comfortable with impregnating her. She was a very attractive young woman. They didn't want her rejected.
Yeah, Stuart Squirbo said he was required to do sexual acts, and when he was in the Montauk program.
Huh.
Or no, it was before Montauk, when he was a young man. I don't know what program he was in, but there's a breeding program where they put the different people together, and they're very young. Like he was like, I don't know, 15 or something. He has his first son when he was 15, and they do that. They make you all turned on.
Elizabeth England did the same thing.
And then, but he was able to. He maintained some kind of connection to his son, so he has like 8 children because of they have this. They made him have a strong sexual urge, and so he kept making babies through the years.
Yeah, it was interesting how they did the sexual urge. It was like a numbness. Well, the spray definitely strengthened it, but it wasn't. It was a very different sexual interaction than there seemed to be a mental connection occurring in some of them. Almost like there was a union before we came together.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were other ones that it was like we were programmed to ejaculate. We didn't really have a fully conscious experience with them.
Right. It's not like making love with somebody you're in love with. It's.
But did you kiss too?
On some of them, they gave us a chance to at least do some dating. They had me see this one woman 4 or 5 times. There was, most of what I don't remember is what happens. I wake up with them in the morning, it seems, or I wake up with them early morning, like 4 a.m., wherever they are. So I don't have an awareness of having sexual activity with them, but that's what I assumed had occurred.
Right. It's not like dating. It's like they put you together, for the purpose of procreating.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not really, it's not really pleasant. It's not unpleasant, but it's just mechanical. It's like
it's more mechanical, but there were some that shared themselves, and I got to meet some of the children that came out of those. There were some that were there was a behavior that was expected. I got in trouble with one woman, and they removed me and did an evaluation of me, which was just plain weird.
What do you mean? Did they get mad at you because you wouldn't make it with her?
No, I inappropriately touched her and she started screaming. She yelled for me to get the hell out of her room. So with her screaming, I got out of her room.
Wow.
And then they put me under observation with these 3 men in white coats with pads of paper, and they had me on this large gurney, and they had another woman that was being very sexually aggressive, but they wanted to make sure that I wouldn't sexually assault her. When she showed me that she wasn't going to accept intercourse, then I gave them the appropriate behavior, and then I was back in the breeding program with other women.
So they wanted some kind of permission.
They seem to be looking for appropriate behavior.
Except for that one time.
What?
Yeah, that time when they turned you into tearing off someone's clothes. That was different, a whole different feeling.
Yeah, that was okay. If the woman didn't spray me, but that was just strange because it was the first time I was ever consciously teleported from my room to another woman's room. And so I was fully conscious through the whole process until she sprayed the spray in my face. And then that just confused me further. It took me a while to put together what happened with her.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think is happening overall? You've had this going on for a long time, and you've been able to, reflect on it, think about it. What's the purpose of all this? Where do these children end up? Are they on ships? Are they on other planets?
No, they're in the visits on the ships ended years ago for me.
Mm-hmm.
All the visits I'm going to are in other states. I ask the people, where am I? Or when I arrive, they'll call me by my name. Kenneth Hopkins, we were expecting you. And what state am I in? You're in New Jersey, or you're in Wyoming, you're in, or you're in China, was what one woman told me. So I'm going to apartments around the country, or houses.
What do you do with these places when you're going to China in different states? New Jersey, different states.
The one in China, I was sent, and a 14-year-old, and I sleep with, sometimes they put clothes on you. Sometimes you end in somewhere with no clothes on. The 14-year-old was expecting me. She gave me clothes to get dressed. It was wintertime. It was cold. There was a lot of snow on the ground. She took me for a walk and in the snow. And then I disappeared. So shortly after, she took me for a walk. And she told me I was in China. Another woman, a couple of women, and I was preventing these cats from getting in a fight because I don't know why I'm sent to these places or what the purpose of going there is. Sometimes maybe it's just practice. Some of them, there's meetings, there's classes, and then, so sometimes I don't know why they're sending me certain places. Okay, I don't have an idea. There's no communication.
But you can ask questions and they answer.
Telepathically, I'm starting to do that. There was one woman, I don't know what she was. The interdimensionals confused me a lot. And she was quite telepathic. But whenever she would come, it must have been the electromagnetic energy around her. I would become dopey.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't focus, and she didn't like that. And she wanted me focused. She wanted me. And so she'd communicated with me in the daytime, freaking me out a couple times. But I don't know what she was. She definitely didn't want to get pregnant.
So it's not always breeding. There's meetings for other reasons, and you're not sure what it's
and
about.
there's meetings with celestials. That's different, what you're saying.
She had to initiate the interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And but she was always with no clothes. We were always both with no clothes. She came into my bed once, thinking that would make me more conscious, more aware. But her presence was like drugs. I couldn't focus in her presence, and it was frustrating. But there was an orgasmic connection, mental, spiritual connection that has left me very confused about her. I tried to write about her on Facebook, and they told me it was pornography. But anyways.
Gotta be careful. Don't write pornography on Facebook. They'll block your account.
I don't know where all the interdimensionals come from. I don't know if they're all Pleiadian or not. But she definitely was not of the usual.
Right. Now, but it seems to be on Earth, though. You're still on Earth. Or are you going?
I've been, more recently, it's been what looks like universities, apartments, houses. It's been Earth. In the past, it was on ships. And supposedly that came up under hypnosis was relationships on the ships with with a particular woman who supposedly had two of my children, and that came up in hypnosis, but it made no sense to me because, this particular celestial wanted to get married. They didn't have the custom of marriage, and she liked Earth's custom of marriage, of union, and I couldn't see having that kind of relationship, and so we spent a lot of time together, but after that, she didn't want to see me anymore.
So was she having an emotional response the way an earthling woman would have at that sad ending of a relationship?
It's hard to know who ends them. The ET, sometimes whatever is controlling us being teleported, they can certainly control us seeing somebody or not seeing somebody. When one child was describing the experiences as they come into my friends come into my room and they take me to my dreams. And her mother was trying to tell her they're imaginary, they're not real. And I talked to the child in front of the mother. I said, "Are they solid like you and me?" And she said, "Yes, they're very solid. They're just like us." Mm-hmm. So they come and they take her to her dreams. Was how she related the experience.
They're in control of the relationships, or at least the frequency with of your visits.
Something has control wherever we go, but they're expecting us when we arrive. They're greeting us by name. Sometimes I'm teleported somewhere and there's nobody around. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I'm lost. I'm wandering around. But most of the time, they're expecting you and they're prepared for you.
When you're lost, wandering around, are you ever aware that you're being watched or observed?
Well, they're letting me, yeah. What often happens is I have to use bathrooms. So I leave the classes to go to find a bathroom. And then I can't find my way back to the class.
That's what happens to Janet all the time.
Yeah, but I end up coming back to my body here in Maui because they let me come back and go to the bathroom. They won't let me wet the bed or anything because I guess
they have let me come back to go to the bathroom, and then the minute I get back in bed, they take me again.
Yeah, I've done that.
But when I'm in their places with the bathrooms, there's been fights I've had fights over the bathrooms. Their bathrooms are co-ed.
Oh, yeah, you were saying that on a private conversation. Go ahead and tell our listeners.
I was chasing this woman out of the bathroom because I wanted privacy. I was chasing all the people out of the women out of the bathrooms.
So you're going to these bathrooms. There's all these other people. Are they all human?
Yeah, they're pretty much, I'm assuming, Palladian. They look human. But I had a recent experience, and I just forgot to mention. It was about 2 weeks ago. And it was this woman brings me through this room with tables, and everybody's sitting down. Everybody looks fairly normal. And she has me sit down on a small table opposite her. Then she starts talking about how grotesque they are and that they take this form so as not to scare us.
Oh.
Then she changed form. And stuff was coming out of her mouth, I guess. And she was explaining, then she went to telepathic. And because before she was talking with her voice. She looked human, she was talking. And then when she went to the creature, it was telepathic. And she's explaining that her excreta comes out of her mouth as well as her intake of food. So I was really grossed out.
What does she look like? What do they look like?
Oh, God.
Animal, vegetable, mineral? What do they look like?
I almost say dragon. Insect. It's hard to describe, to try to remember these features on some of these ETs. Because your brain won't hold it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was a child, I couldn't hold the face of the reptilian I was looking at. I had to learn over time to hold that. And then when I was looking at an artist rendition of this reptilian and the face, and it was just a pencil drawing, but it was enough to make my brain unclick, and then I saw, the reptilian face that I had seen all my childhood in full color. It was like, and like an eye blinking and moving, and it's like, oh, it was almost like a portal in time, and he's looking at me, and I'm going, oh, there you are, because my mind had blocked it. But it wasn't as horrifying as I thought it was at the time. As a child, 4 years old, looking at a reptilian, it was horrifying. But when I saw the reptilian, now it was almost like a friendly face. Oh, hi, I know you.
Yeah. Yeah, she was particularly frightening, but there was no reason to be fearful of her. I wrote about her experience with her. And someone was saying she was an angel, but she was very pleasant, very warm, and very soothing. There was nothing other than the features. And then the two-headed woman that I experienced was very frightening. And I couldn't...
They the same head, same face, or were they different?
Both faces were the same. And one face was responding, one wasn't. And she was presenting our child. So I had flashbacks of previous interactions with her. In the previous interactions, there wasn't the fear that sometimes as become more conscious, the fear becomes more intense. But when I arrived there, I was trying to avoid her totally. I was going into the other rooms of the house, looking for other people, walking past her. And then she started to engage in conversation. And I didn't know how to look at her. I didn't know how to deal emotionally with her. Then they teleported me out. They seem to pick up on the emotions.
Oh yeah, they're very aware, because there's no filters for them. They know exactly what you're thinking and feeling. They really want you to feel comfortable. They don't want you, just having discomfort.
Yeah.
But was the woman with two heads, was that like a birth defect, or was that normal for her species?
The baby didn't look like it had two heads.
Say that again, please. I sneezed. I couldn't hear. Sorry.
The baby didn't look like it had two heads. It looked like a normal baby.
Heads.
So I'm assuming it's a defect.
Because we have people, if you ever watch YouTube, there's people that are born with, like when you said the one was functioning and the one wasn't, that's...
Well, no, one was...
Spinning that didn't come off
One
right.
was active with us, the other one wasn't. It was like two separate personalities in the heads.
Mm-hmm. But they were humanoid.
every other aspect of her was human.
Okay. Wow, so you've had quite a lot of adventures.
But she was frightening.
So when was that? Was that recent times or years ago? When did you see this?
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
Maybe 3. They had me in the hybrid program. They started 2010.
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, that's the one I was telling you where they're having me meet these different. I call it hybrid. Of course, they don't.
Okay, right, because that's what you were saying. You're in the Pleiadian program. Now, I was told that I'm in the Anunnaki program, but the Anunnaki might be Pleiadian. They are. So I was told the same thing. But see, I ask a lot of questions.
They were part of the Pleiadian Unity Kingdom, and before they moved to Nibiru.
So when I'm in contact, I ask them a lot of questions. I'll say,
yeah, I don't know. I have trouble figuring out how to ask and what to ask. Like, I'm in this room with this young woman, and I'm saying, "Who are you? Where are you from?" I'm trying to figure out. I could not. All she was doing was smiling. She was happy. She was quite pleasant, but I didn't know how to ask her questions. And then they blanked out. One woman was talking about previous things that we had done, and they blanked it out, so I couldn't remember what she said. As she was speaking, I told her I wrote a book, and she said, "Did you write about me?" And then I'm thinking, "About you?" And she says, "Yeah, the things we used to do."
Oh my gosh.
You're doomed. You don't remember.
I had no memory, but then as she spoke about him, I couldn't make out, her words became gibberish. I couldn't process them. They do that a lot. Under hypnosis, we couldn't process it. But she'd had many interactions with me. I remembered some of them, but I didn't remember a lot of them.
When you imagined what might have happened.
What? I'm losing voice. I'm losing voice. It says you are breaking up.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I can't hear you. Does this happen much to you?
We're having technical difficulties at the moment. Yeah, it's Skype. We often have issues with Skype.
Okay.
It's because they're sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
Janet, you want to do a real quick sound check?
You're coming in good now.
We don't know what anybody's saying. They're babbling everything we're saying. Okay, Kenneth, try that again.
You're coming in good.
Oh, come on, E.T.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Kevin. Finish your story.
Oh.
Tell them what they said.
So, anyways, we were not able to recover under hypnosis. I went through the interaction with the young woman. It seems like she was from Earth. I don't even think she was ET. And it's quite common that they'll blank out, almost like television might, so you can't hear certain things from the person that they're trying to tell you. They're trying to give you information. You can't get it. You can't receive it. You can't process it. So I couldn't. So under hypnosis, I couldn't make sense of what the girl said either.
I'm getting that maybe she was your daughter. If she was 14 and just smiling at you. Can you hear me?
No, she was older.
Shoot. This
one was in her 20s.
Oh, okay.
She had dark hair, light complexion. She seemed to be from Earth because in an earlier discussion we were talking about resolving conflicts at work. So she definitely was from Earth. But certain things she couldn't say. Other times ETs have pulled me aside to talk to me. And I can't. And they're speaking English. And I can't process what they're saying. They want to share the ETs or the beings. They want to share some information, but it doesn't get through.
So you're not afraid of them at all?
No.
At this point.
With this group that I'm talking about, I've been more the aggressive, inappropriate at times. They're not violent. They're not. They basically abhor. They won't permit violence. And I've been zapped out because of violence or because misunderstanding a situation or aggression. Often you don't know what the heck is going on in the area that you're dropped into. Or for me, it's like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know why I'm here. So I wait for somebody to tell me usually.
And sometimes you got clothes and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, the clothing thing I haven't figured out. And then one time they were in such a hurry, they had the clothing on wrong. They had like the what? Underwear. They wanted me to see this particular person who is on Earth. They wanted me to know that this person is connected with them. So they did. It was like a 10-minute abduction. So zap, I'm in a class with my pants down to my knees and my underwear over the jeans. I got a t-shirt and I've got the shirt to cover my genitals. And I'm sitting in a class of people. But they wanted me to see that person. The person didn't recognize me. So she had to have been an alternate personality to that person. But they wanted me to know that she was with them.
Did anyone else notice your attire?
No, I had basically above the table, I looked good. I had a shirt on.
Oh. That's funny. Did they ever return you with somebody else's clothes? I've heard that before.
Yeah, I don't know how they do the clothing thing. I haven't figured it out. Sometimes you have no clothing. Other times you do. There's times they had me folding clothing and piling clothing and washing clothing. But I don't know how they take you and then you end up with clothing on, or they take you. I can understand when they take me and I have no clothing on because I sleep with I can't sleep because my body gets too hot with clothing on. So if they take me from the bed, 9 out of 10, I don't have clothing on.
But you sometimes come back with clothing on.
No, I've never come back with clothing on. There was one time I awakened going through my closet getting clothing on, but it ended because I woke up. I was supposed to do some things and then when I became conscious, I said, what the heck am I doing in the closet for?
Right.
But no, I've never come back. One woman was trying to get me to come back with pictures of her and her child. And I that time I had a t-shirt and pajama bottoms on. And I told her, I said, there's no way I can bring anything back. But had I been smarter, they could have come back if I put it in the pocket of the PJs.
Yeah. Yeah, people are always trying to bring something back, but they don't let you.
Some people have managed to. Sometimes.
One thing did come back.
Ah.
And I hope I have it. I did several articles on it. It was, a group of us ended up in this very cold room which heated up. We had these strange coats on, and we were instructed. There's like 12 of us. There was like 3 or 4 men instructing us to take the coats off. We had clothing on, and they wanted us to inject ourselves. And they handed us syringes to inject ourselves with. I wasn't comfortable with injecting myself, so they assisted me in the injection. They injected me in the thigh, and that...
We will assist you. Wow.
And then they had us go into another room and take stuff off of a table. They had us take these little bracelets off of the table. So I stuck them in my pocket of the pants that I had on. About a week later, it shows up in my coat pocket.
Wow. What did they look like?
I'm going to look for it. I think I know where I put it. We couldn't make out the material or the figures. It almost like little figures from Star Wars. But I couldn't figure out if it was plastic or rock.
You still have it?
Yeah, I have it somewhere. I got to figure out where I put it. I did an article on it, on that whole experience around it.
Probably already has pictures of it, yeah?
Do you have any pictures of it?
Yeah, there should be a picture. Yeah, I'm going to, there was a picture on the computer. I'm going to see if I get a picture of it. Send it to you.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll add it to your page.
Yeah, that's the only thing and it was really, they were real specific of what we took off the table. There's a lot of stuff. We thought when we were going into the other room, we were going to get breakfast. And then they took us in a bus, in a van ride.
Wow.
To a class that I have no memory of. But there was a 3-foot woman that she must have been frightened. I don't remember meeting her, but she was very comfortable being in my presence. She may have been 4 feet, so tall. She had the perfect shape and everything that we have, except she was 4 feet tall. She didn't speak much, but she grabbed me to sit down next to her. And then once the class starts, we have no memory of whatever is going on in most of these classes. But that class was in chairs on a lawn, on a very large lawn.
That was outdoors. Interesting. I was once at a class. They took me to a class, and I was up on the stage teaching everybody how to levitate.
Oh, wow. You were teaching in the class.
Yeah, and I was going, wow, I'm teaching people to levitate. I didn't know I know how to levitate and teach people how to levitate.
So it was like 2 personalities involved?
Yeah, the one became aware of the other. So apparently
yeah.
I'm a teacher of some of these concepts.
Yeah.
And there was as far as I could see, there were people as far as I could see.
Wow.
And they wanted me to teach them in case there's flooding, they can levitate, and then the ships can come and get people. It was like a rapture thing. Huh. You had to get you up high so the ships could find you easily, so you don't get swept away by the floods. So, and this was back, I remember very clearly, I was 21 years old, so we're talking about 1975.
Do you know where this was? What world or what?
I got it was the impression it was the future of the Earth. There was, and then I had another episode, like a sequel or a follow up to that, where I'm climbing a mountain, and I have a cat in a carrier, and it's a steep mountain, but I'm going straight up, like no effort. And same thing, you got to get to high ground. If they get up high, they can beam you up or whatever, and you got to get away from the floods. And at that time, I didn't have I hadn't had a cat since I was 10 years old, and I was in my 30s, so I had a little dog at that time. So I'm going, well, this is this time, but it was Earth. It was definitely Earth.
Yeah, because with global warming, they're discussing water permeating most of the Earth's surface.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, and then there was another one when I came here. They were talking about the waters coming over Honolulu, but at the last minute, an energy dome. So the water's coming in, and everybody thinks they're going to die, but then magically this dome appears, and it protects all of Honolulu from this water coming.
Wow. Then was that a future?
Yeah, it was future, but that was back in the early 90s.
It's also the reality that HARP has a battery to protect the Stryker fleet, and they have the capacity to turn away a storm. Absolutely, it's already here. It's just our military and also the Russians have the similar capacity.
Yeah, they could energetically projected a dome over the city and protected it from the giant tidal waves.
Some kind of field.
Yeah.
Yeah, field, right. Because when I was taken one time, I was screaming, and they said, go ahead and scream. Nobody can hear you, because I was in an energy field where nothing could hear.
Yeah. That's...
But once they told me that, go ahead and scream, nobody can hear you, I just relaxed, and then I went into observer and curiosity. Oh, what's going on? Interesting. Can't do anything anyway. Might as well enjoy the ride.
Yeah, screaming's not going to help. Yeah, I'm glad I don't remember too many screaming episodes. Thank God.
I was jerked out of my bed. I would have screamed if it was a spider, right? It was like you're in one place. This was they physically carried me, so I'm sound asleep in my bed. Imagine being asleep in your bed, and all of a sudden, 6 beings pick you up and carry you. You're on your back, like a surfboard.
And I'm just wondering, I guess for both of you, do you have a sense, like Elizabeth said, of the same group of people that you keep getting interacting with, and not just one here or there, but is there a core group that you keep contacting in the other dimension?
There was 2 women that I grew up going to the classes from age 6 and 7. And the last time I saw one was 2005. And I gave them names. One was Angry Brunette. The other was Tall Blonde. And so I remember growing up with them, or in these night experiences. They were telepathic. One was telepathic. She spoke and she did both almost at the same time. And I guess the brunette was in 2005 was the last time I saw her, and we were being taken through what looked like wasteland. There was powdery white stuff over everything.
Ooh.
And we were being shown the devastation or something. There was a group of us, about 12, 15 of us, and she was with that group, and that was the last time I saw her.
Was that on Earth or another planet?
that was definitely, I couldn't recognize where that was. I don't know if it had to do with nuclear. To me, it seemed like we shouldn't be walking there.
Right.
But it was brick buildings. It could have been Earth, but I don't know. My impression was it wasn't.
Yeah, they'll show me places, ruins and devastation, and then they'll take me to the same place, and it'll be a different time, and there's large apartment buildings, and everything green and manicured and beautiful. And I go, what are you doing? They just keep sending me back and forth through time. But
to the same place.
Tell me it's the same place. And I recognize sometimes there's some kind of feature that carries over, like the ocean's over there, and over there was the, such building, and that building's gone, but they rebuilt it, and it's a new version of the same building.
Huh. Yeah, so you could recognize maybe the topography. Mountain, the background geological
places. You go to people. I go to places all the time, but I think they're training me on a couple things like different systems of governance, because they, obviously all the political and societal systems have failed on the earth. It's not really meeting the needs of the people. Governing systems are there to meet the needs of the citizens of the planet, and the citizens here, the needs are not getting to be met. So they're training me on different social structures that will first meet the needs of every person alive. I mean, they don't operate on money. They look at us like, what are you trying to do with this? And then when I'm there, it's like I come back and I go, what are we trying to do with this stuff called money? Because it's totally not there. It's not working. And it allows people to be greedy and control.
Yeah, it works to enslave us. I was getting a whole download on economic systems without money.
Yes, me too.
And it was really, the money just works for the greed.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't work for anything else. It works to enslave you for the greed.
So we're in this slave system, and I said, what am I supposed to do with that? So I blogged it, but it didn't have any effect.
Yeah. I sent it out on Facebook about an economy without money.
Yeah.
Universal needs, minimum needs, income. It's conceptually anybody can do the math. Yang did it well.
Yeah, he's just addressing the money part, but
you don't need
this
money.
Is about you don't need money. You can meet the needs of the entire planet. The only reason money exists is for the greedy people, so they can have greed and they can control and manipulate humanity and enslave us. And once we get that,
I was told the reptilians brought the hoarding of resources, the ideologies behind the hoarding of resources to Earth. I don't know if that is necessarily true, but
what Nanar, who later became Allah, did, his big innovation, saying we don't always have to have war. There's other ways of doing things. Let's get everybody to be in debt to everybody else. And when the United States was had just become a new nation, Alexander Hamilton said, we've got to borrow money so that we can get it and be in debt so that we can be part of the system.
Yeah, the whole system is being created on debt.
Exactly.
Right.
And the property that the debt represented was black slaves. That's what made Britain and the United States the richest countries. And it's just ripping people off of their. That's what government does in this hierarchical dominator system. Well, it robs people of their lives. Ultimate slavery is conscription in the military.
It's using a business model.
Yes, exactly.
and it all comes down to profit. I'm trying to remember what I wrote, but profit is what we are all enslaved for.
Right.
You remove profit, then we're serving one another.
Yeah, we're in service to each other, and we're here to, we're here to contribute.
Right.
While you're alive, you contribute to where you are.
Like what the Cherokee would do, they would sit around and say, I would like to count a coup, and I would like you to know that I acted honorable in such and such a situation. And that's what you get. You get accolades if you're happy that you've accomplished something that you're interested in.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what the ETs are teaching me about their societies. And so somehow what we're seeing is all of our systems are failing.
Yeah, they have no place to go.
Yeah,
that was where I had some visions that scared me out of meditation for years afterwards, of everything going into ruin, into destruction. And there seemed to be something that gained from that.
Well, out of chaos, the perturbation creates chaos, which reorders at a higher level.
That's right.
You can't, and I'm hoping, I know there's other systems where we don't have to, have the apocalypse. And evolve and
there's many. If there's just the proper interconnection of information, you have the formulas. It's peace, love, freedom, happiness. Peace, love, freedom, happiness. That's the formula.
That's what they sang in Aquarius. They knew it in the 60s, and then somehow I guess that generation was getting downloads from ETs a lot. They were back in the 50s. They were going to Big Rock in California, and just the ships would come down, and the guy, what was it? The guy would just walk over to the ship and go on board in front of everybody and take off.
Adamski,
yeah. So they had a much higher level of contact than we're getting. Now it's all secretive, but it was very open back then.
Yeah. It's funny. I was getting this stuff on order, and the order seems to have its own means of instruction incorporated in it. It'll go to a point, and then it will self-destruct. And it seemed like that was in all orders. Or when I say orders, I'm talking about society outlines. Or
yes, I agree. That's what it is.
Well, if you're stagnating and you're no longer growing, that's why you have to have it up level, and often you need something, a catalyst to restructure, so it reorganizes in a higher level. So what's going on isn't necessarily a bad thing. And when I go to meetings with a lot of species, they're showing me and modeling to me how to be totally at peace, which is strange because humans are always agitated, and they have worry and they have stress. But you go to these other planets, and everybody's in this Zen state, and it's like, wow, they don't even have a violent thought. They don't have any kind of it's just amazing.
Well, it was amazing meeting some of the beings from these universes, because they had no fear.
Right, zero fear.
They're very their presences were I found very enjoyable, but they had no fear. They had no and it was so unlike. And I don't know if the duality. There was some stuff in my early research that came on the Pleiadians setting up the dualities. I don't think all realities need the dualities.
Yes, you're correct. I agree.
And so I think the realities without the dualities are going to have the peace, the quiet, the spiritual evolving.
Yeah. So I wonder what was the purpose behind duality, but it seems like it came from species that were at peace. So it's almost like they wanted to mix it up a little bit.
No, when you have polar
yeah, it was right.
That's how you create a dimension. Without polar opposites, you don't have a dimension, and everything's connected to everything else, and so there's that many dimensions, and they're all accessible to a meditator. You can access any of them without losing any of them because they're all always there.
So I want to get into more meditation.
And
I find best to find somebody to meditate with.
Absolutely. Tantric meditation. You have a lot, if you're having these wonderful experiences with, you can use your coming together with other people to just do amazingly congruent field with other people and access any place. All the singularities of every place and every when.
Yeah.
So I get that if you meditate more, you'll get more comfortable and they'll give you more information.
Yes.
The more relaxed.
Yeah, that's you get in a state that becomes easier to connect with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have 1 minute left before the music. What would you like to tell our listeners?
Sell your beer.
Yeah. How people contact you, Kenneth?
Okay.
Are you there? Last minute is yours.
Yeah. I'm still here.
Okay.
Last minute words.
What would you like to tell us with the last minute?
I can't think of a thought I can develop.
Okay, that's okay. I'll talk. Well, it's been a delight talking to you once again, Kenneth. I will have you back again sometime. What do you like to say, Sasha?
Kenneth, you are surrounded by such incredible powers. They're right there with you now, and I can feel them, and you're just part of the team. Dig it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll teach me what part.